Maria Caulfield joins me, I'm glad to say, Minister for Women's Health and Conservative MP for Lewis. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Shelagh.
I think this is a really positive move by the government, and I think women did as well, didn't they? Because you got a big response to that consultation.
Yeah, we've got a huge response, over 100,000 women, and the strategy vision that we're outlining today is straight from those women who told us throughout their lifetime, whether it was younger women talking about trying to get diagnosed with endometriosis, the average weight or time it takes to get diagnosed after repeated visits to doctors and other healthcare professionals is 8 years. When endometriosis can affect someone's fertility, they're a precious 8 years. Or whether it was women who were going through the menopause, who very often just thought that hot flushes and night sweats are due to the menopause, didn't realise their change in mood, their brain fog, their just general lethargy was down to biological changes. They thought they weren't coping with life. Well, later on, the risk of osteoporosis, women are much more risk of breaking a hip or, fractures later on in life, simply because biologically, as their estrogen depletes, they're much more at risk of bone fractures. And there's things we can do to prevent that, but they aren't aware of that, or when they are aware, they're not getting the help that they need. So a huge response from all ages.
And you mentioned the menopause there. For a lot of women, when they go to the doctor for help about the menopause, time and again I hear of, it's happened to friends of mine, time and again I hear women are given antidepressants rather than have a proper conversation and perhaps blood tests around their estrogen and progesterone levels, which can make a massive difference to how they manage that phase of life.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Carolyn Harris, who we had a big debate in Parliament in October on this, told her own story of how she was on antidepressants for years. And it was only after, keep going back and pushing that she found out it was due to the menopause. And then it took her quite a while to come off those antidepressants. You can't just stop them straight away. And that's the issue with the menopause, is sometimes the symptoms do mask things like depression. But that's why it's important that we help GPs and other healthcare professionals develop their ongoing training so that they can have those conversations with women and look at them as a whole, rather than as a few symptoms that present at an appointment.
Are you aware that there is still really quite a serious hangover, it seems to me, from what probably 20-year-old research now, much of which has been debunked, about the risks of HRT, the risks of taking hormones in your menopausal years and beyond. Even very recently, somebody I know went to see for the first time, quite nervous about doing it, and I was encouraging them to do it, went to see their GP about getting HRT, or possibly, you have to discuss it obviously with a professional, with a health professional. And the only thing the doctor was a male doctor, an older guy. The only thing he said to her was, "Oh, but what about the risk of cancer?" That was it.
Yeah, no. I mean, absolutely. That's still the experience that many women face. I was in breast cancer research, back in the day when that research was coming through, and there was concern around the risk of breast cancer. But as you say, that research has mainly been, changed over time.
But there are also, again, the whole business of things being individual, and I'll move away from the menopause in a moment. But it seems because there is a new conversation around menopause, I think, and I think that the work you're doing here is really timely in relation to it. But I'll move on to other elements in a moment. But the question of being treated as an individual when you walk through the door is as true for men as it is for women, isn't it? Because there will be some women, because of cancers they've had or conditions they've had, for whom HRT won't be the best idea. But the idea that then is applied blanket to everybody appears to be what's happened with HRT.
Yeah, and obviously if women have had a history of breast cancer or have got a family history of breast cancer, they need to take advice on that before starting HRT, because obviously for some women with breast cancer, hormones can have an influence. But generally, it's nice guidelines that HRT should be offered to women, and only around 10% of women are getting access to it. And it is about treating the person as an individual. HRT doesn't work for everyone. It's not the golden bullet, and you may need to try several types of HRT to find the one that works for you. But it is about having that conversation and having that confidence to go back if at first you don't feel you're being heard, or the advice you've been given isn't working for you.
Did women with particular disabilities give you feedback about how they are treated, or assumptions that are perhaps made about them because of their disability?
So for sure, and there's a separate piece of work in relation to healthcare around people with disabilities. But many of the issues that they raised are issues that women were facing across the board. So there will be, I guess, added issues for women with disabilities, but the general feeling of having to really push hard to get some movement on issues such as the menopause, but things like osteoporosis as well. So, and mental health in particular came out very strongly too.
What, as people not being listened to?
Yeah, sometimes just trying to get access to an appointment once they'd seen the GP, the range of services that were on offer, long waits for counselling services, often being put on medication straight away, and that might not be the appropriate treatment. So, yeah, it's around being able to have that time and space to explore all options. I thought that came across really strongly.
And you mentioned your previous incarnation in research and cancer research. This goes beyond the surgery appointment room, doesn't it, and the hospital ward, because I'm sure you've read the book by Caroline Criado Perez called Invisible Women, where she looks at the myriad ways, including health, but other things as well, the myriad ways in which the world is interpreted through the lens of the male eye, really, including health research, including the design of uniforms in the army, the design of body armour and things. And the research world is a key part here as well, isn't it, for women, particularly as we live longer and we're, for all kinds of reasons, working longer and being active participants in society for much longer.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at research figures, women are generally underrepresented in clinical research, and it's really, we're trying really hard to get women to participate in clinical research in bigger numbers. But it's not just in healthcare. If you look in the workplace, part of this women's health strategy is about addressing workplace issues, whether that's, again, the menopause, women struggling when they're going through the menopause, but also hearing from women around baby loss and the difficulty having to explain to an employer if you've just had a miscarriage and wanting time off. The workplace can be as equally difficult as trying to get access to healthcare support too.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about it many times with my listeners on that there are elements of life which only happen to a woman, and there are elements of life that only happen to a man. And of course, in a relationship, they happen together, don't they? If somebody loses a child, often it's a couple that's lost a child. But yeah, they're all important areas. What are you going to do with this now, with this information you've got?
So this is really just the vision document that sets out the priorities that are identified in the consultation. And it's really kind of saying to women, this is what we've heard from you in terms of the priorities. What will happen now in the next few weeks is we want to put the meat on the bone in terms of how we're going to tackle these issues. So we've highlighted things like osteoporosis, like mental health, things like fertility issues. And we want to kind of set a standard that women can feel that's the expectation in terms of those specific areas. So they know what they should be pushing for. Healthcare professionals know what they should be offering. And then the government can help support to make that happen.